Ta-da! I'm so excited to share with you maybe the first review on YouTube of the new NES-1 wind synth from NUX. Insert B-roll here. Full disclosure, NUX sent me this product to review, but no money exchanged hands, and this is a completely unbiased look at this new wind synth from NUX. I think this is a forward-looking, feature-packed synthesizer, ultimately held back by a few poor design decisions. Fortunately, I do think some of the issues that I'm having with the NES-1 could be fixed in a future firmware update, as this is straight out of the factory version 1.01, and no updates have been announced at the time of filming. The other wind synth that I have experience with is the Akai EWI USB. It's the USB-only version of the classic Akai EWI. The 4000 and the 5000 are quite popular. I love this thing. It's great. It uses the touch keys that don't move at all, whereas the NES-1 is more like the Roland Aerophones. It's got moving keys that are designed to sort of emulate the key layout of a real saxophone. These are keys that move. Akai EWI 4000 and 5000 I believe have onboard sounds, but the EWI USB does not, and I play this primarily plugged into my iPad or plugged into a Mac computer using Logic, and it can work with all kinds of other synthesizers. So what's really fun about the NES-1 is that this does have 50 onboard sounds that we can scroll through with this really beautiful full color LED screen. There are some traditional Chinese instruments, some woodwinds, brass, some guitar and plucked string samples, a few synth sounds, and then the back to the Chinese instruments. So there are 50 instruments included in total. This is a fully fledged menu that we can use to change all kinds of settings with, and it works very well. It's not slow at all. The battery life on this thing is really amazing. It features sample-based sounds. There's not like a synthesis engine in this thing. It's just using samples that you can sometimes hear when it switches between registers, which is not the best sound. For example, here's the tenor saxophone. It sounds nothing like a saxophone, but if you just look at these sounds as options for this instrument, we have this. So you can hear right here, like the difference between and this. It sounds like two completely different patches, and that's an issue that I have with a lot of the sounds on here. The flute's alright, and it's we control the octaves on the NES-1 similar to the Aerophone, octave down, octave up. So it's just like playing a saxophone, except you also have an octave down key. And it works quite well. As I mentioned before, the key layout is just like a saxophone. We've got palm keys, we've got side keys, we've got the octave up key. The only real difference is the octave down. There's also a pitch bend wheel, which if I have any complaints about, it's just that it's a little bit stiff, but it works great. Here's the mute trumpet sound. There's a bite sensor in the mouthpiece that has two settings. One is to, when you bite, it plays a vibrato. The other option for this is to have it control the pitch, so that if you bite down, you get the actual pitch, and as you lower your mouth, so it's more like a real instrument, but it's not super responsive. It feels a little bit like You can't do this smoothly the way you can on a real saxophone. And it sounds less like vibrato and more like just switching notes. It's also, the mouthpiece is quite firm, so eventually your bottom teeth will kind of start to hurt. It's a little too stiff to use a lip embouchure, in my opinion. So I prefer to keep this on the vibrato setting, and you can also change the speed of the vibrato, so. I find that setting a little more useful. The NES-1 features 50 built-in sample-based sounds, moving button keys. It's very similar to a saxophone layout. Another very cool feature of this thing is the wireless 1/4-inch adapter, which unfolds like that. I tried this out on a guitar amp, and it works very well. I plugged this straight into a guitar amp, turned it on, pressed the connect button on the main instrument right here. It connected instantaneously, and the battery life on this I think is supposed to be 2 or 3 hours. So if you want to practice with a band, maybe you just want to use this for practice or something, it will work plugged into a PA system or amp. And this is really just a very cool piece of technology overall that it worked at all. I think I would rather have a wireless MIDI USB connection so that I could plug this into my laptop and control the synthesizers of my choosing in my software wirelessly, but as it is right now I have to use a USB cable in order to control soft synths with the NES-1. This 1/4-inch plug actually charges when it's inside the body of the NES-1, and it charges in there just like AirPods. There's also 3 memory slots, so you can, with this key next to the octave key, go between 3 predetermined patches if you can find 3 that you really want to use. I'm a fan of Synth 9. This is patch number 35 on here. Kind of reminds me of the sort of 80s, 90s EWI patches that Brecker would play just a little bit. And number Synth 6, number 32. I like these sounds because they're not trying to be a real instrument, which pretty much always fails. Here's electric guitar 1. And if I'm playing a wind synth, I kind of want to be able to bring the volume up from nothing even after I've been playing a long note. So like if I go to my synth, I do this. I can always get the volume. On some of the string-based samples on here, the sample itself actually has decay built in, which means you can't bring the volume back up, sort of, to me, defeating the purpose of using a breath controller. My first impression of this instrument is that the layout really does feel pretty much exactly like a real saxophone. The spacing between the keys is pretty good, it's pretty comfortable to hold, and that's great as a practice tool. You can actually lay in bed and wear headphones plugged right into here with a battery that'll last 6 hours or so and just play tunes without bothering anyone, which is awesome. It's like the coolest thing about this type of wind synth, in my opinion. However, after playing it for several hours over the course of the last few weeks, I found that the design of the keys kind of puts a damper on my enjoyment. These main 6 keys feel pretty good. I think they're about the right amount of resistance and they feel responsive. The issue comes in when we get to the pinky keys and the side keys. This one, the low C key, it feels very hard to push. I might actually get tired in here if I play for a while. Same for this one. You have to put a good amount of pressure to it in a specific direction. It only moves kind of down and into the body of the instrument and not like a real key. It can flex downward without actually changing the note. The side keys and the palm keys are even worse. These keys, you can see they move this way. They don't go down. If you push like this, nothing happens. And they're kind of chunky and clicky, and they sort of take a second to unpress sometimes, like this one. But yeah, the main problem is that they travel sideways and not down, or even diagonally. They only move if you push your hand to the right, if your left hand moves to the right. With a little bit of practice, you can get used to it and play chromatically, but that's the main thing, I think, holding this back from feeling really quite natural to a saxophone player. Really quite natural to a saxophone player. Another issue, and this is one of the ones that I hope they release a firmware update for, is that when you go from any fingering with keys down to a fingering with no keys, like to play C sharp, there's a noticeable lag time to that's longer than any other note change on the instrument. So if you're playing like an A major scale, there's a lag time that makes it kind of sound like you missed C sharp entirely. Whereas if I play a scale without that note in it, so here's G, no problem. Here's A. It's right there. When you go from D to C sharp, there's a longer lag time. So that lag for me is a pretty big problem right now. You can get around it by using the low C sharp fingering just in whatever register you're in. It works better, but not great. And the other problem with that is that like I said, the pinky keys are a little bit hard to push. These are all right, but these are a little chunky and don't always move how I expect them to. We can change the sensitivity from high, medium, or low. If I put it on low, that adds like a lag time to everything. I don't like how that feels at all, so I've been keeping this on the highest setting. Yeah, so overall, if I play this for more than half an hour, my hands get tired, is kind of the biggest issue with it. I find the keys a little bit hard to press, but I do like the inclusion of a totally sax-based fingering, so I think they're very close. I think a second version of this instrument could be really fantastic in terms of the key layout. Let's talk a little bit more about the sounds. So what you're hearing now is the sounds coming out of the internal speaker, which is quite loud. The speaker is, I think there's two. There's actually a speaker right here and a speaker right here. So it's pretty loud. If I turn it up all the way, I might blow out my mic. Yeah, that's too loud. So it gets loud enough for playing alone for sure, or playing with another quiet instrument, and you can always use the 1/4" plug to play with an amp if you're playing with a band. I'll make another video where I play a bunch of the sounds and plug this directly into the interface so you can hear them in a higher quality, and I'll link to that below. For now, you can just get an idea of what it sounds like if you're holding this thing and playing by yourself. Here's alto saxophone. So as you can hear, it's not legato at all, even though I'm not tonguing. So if I go slow, that sounds all right, but when you speed up, it sounds like it's tonguing every note. It makes it very hard to feel fluid at higher speeds, the way I can play the sax. This is called alto saxophone vibrato, which it doesn't really have vibrato unless you bite down. It's a little bit more of a pleasant sample though. You can play crescendos. So yeah, you know, like if you're laying in bed with headphones on, you can practice tunes. You can practice fingering, sight reading. If you're an amateur or beginner player or sort of even intermediate and you just want to learn some songs like without making any sound in the real world at all, this would work for that. Here's Flute. It's higher, it feels like it's an octave higher than it needs to be. So the second register feels like the third register, and you only have 3 octaves to work with. So I kind of wish everything could be shifted down an octave, and there's no setting for that in the settings. Here's trumpet. So that works. Here's trombone. Yeah, there's no legato. Here are the synth sounds, which I think are the most interesting. Synth 2. These also feel the most fluid in terms of ability to play legato. Synth 4. Oof. Kind of aggressive. Synth 5. There's that E flat key issue. My finger goes this way, the way I play saxophone, and it doesn't move at all. I have to turn my wrist to push that key to the right. Not a bad lead synth there. 6. The pictures for the synths are funny. They look like old analog synths, and they're all just slightly different. We also have customizable reverb in here. Here's the max reverb setting. Still going. Kind of good new age sound. Let me turn that reverb down a little bit. That's level 5 out of 5. Here's 3. It's a little more useful. I think I'll keep it on 2. Yeah, overall, I find the synths to be the most fluid, actually playable instruments on here. Seven, number 8. Number 9. Number 10. Very abrasive. Turn that down some more. And my main issue again with these is that they're all like an octave higher than I want them to be. I want to be able to play some bass lines on an EWI. That's the lowest note. I'm pressing the down octave key and I'm playing a low B flat. That's as low as you can go on the synth. Like I want one more octave down, or an option to change that in the settings, like just an overall transposition. There is a transpose knob, and it changes the key that you're playing in. So if you want to play and have it come out the way it would on a tenor saxophone or trumpet, you can go to B flat. You can go to E flat if you want to play like an alto. Then we've got all these the Chinese instruments built in, which I'm not super familiar with, other than the pipa, and the erhu. The erhu doesn't sound anything like a real erhu. I didn't expect it to, but that's what we have. Some of the Chinese flutes are actually nice sounds. Good patches for playing on here. And there's also two plucked instruments which have a kind of a cool feature that is not executed flawlessly, but it's still kind of fun to play with. So if you play a note and then depress the side B flat key, you get a plucking, repeated plucking. You can't control the speed of it though, so that's kind of a random speed. And it goes, it's faster the higher you're playing because it's just a sample. So, like F is really fast, and then G is slow. Fun idea, not a great execution. That hopefully again they can fix some of this with the firmware. I also have a feeling that there's enough of a brain in this thing to maybe have a synth engine like the Aerophone I believe does, and the 4000, the EWI 4000, where it's actually generating sounds instead of just playing a sample. I think that would lead to more fluid playing. If they fix that and the problem with the C sharp fingering where there's a lag, I'd be a lot happier with this instrument. Here's the ba woo. A little crunchy. Some of these also have limited range. A bunch of the Chinese instruments have a limited range. I love this one. I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe soon, June. It's a cool sound. Feels very responsive too. Overall, I think this is a very well designed piece of music technology, from the wireless to the fact that, I forgot to mention this, you can actually connect your phone to the Bluetooth, and it's not a Bluetooth output, it's a Bluetooth input. So if you have headphones here, you can put like a play along or a recording that you're like doing a transcription, play like a Coltrane record through this over Bluetooth. This essentially becomes a Bluetooth speaker or adapter, because if I plug my headphones in, I can listen to whatever I'm playing on my phone through here while I'm playing the instrument. So for example, I can use the Drum Genius app on my phone and have a beat playing through this. And that volume is controlled separately, which is nice. For example, you could put a backing track on here. So overall, I think this has some issues that would prevent me from recommending it to an experienced wind synth player. I don't think this is going to beat the Roland Aerophone or the EWI. But if you're maybe an amateur musician who's learning the saxophone, and maybe there's a baby in the house, or you have neighbors that don't want to hear anything, and you have no other way to practice, this could be a good tool, because it really does, you know, if you practice reading music, especially if you're a beginner and you're playing relatively simple things, this won't get in your way. If you're a professional wind synth player or a saxophonist who is interested in using an EWI in your in a performance setting, I don't think I can recommend this as it is right now. Maybe with some revision to the key design and a few firmware updates, I think this could be a very good instrument. Overall, I think they're going for the Roland Aerophone vibe. Anyway, sound off in the comments if you have any questions about the NES-1 or wind synths in general. I'll do my best to answer. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.